I'm sure that as Asian Australians, we also have many similar stories and common experiences that connect us to one another, even though we may be apart by distance and even without knowing each other personally. There were times growing up when I was ashamed to be Vietnamese, such as when my mother would haggle at the Maya Centre, when I was disowned by my parents for leaving home at the age of 17, or way back in childhood when my family were told, "You're in Australia, speak Australian." But sometimes it is precisely your perceived weaknesses which are your very strength. If I didn't have my Vietnamese language skills and heritage, I would not have had a linguistic advantage in representing the ethnic Vietnamese minority victim group in Cambodia who had survived the Khmer Rouge's genocide. If anything, speaking the same language and having the same ethnicity bonded us and enabled a vulnerable group who would not even trust their own national lawyer to trust me. And this personal connection also became a professional relationship that enabled me to give voice to the group who would not otherwise have participated in the tribunal. When I was admitted before the Cambodian Bar Association as international counsel, I was 27. Initially, I worked with colleagues from Singapore who formed the entity Access to Justice Asia, but for ethical and strategic reasons, we split representation of the two minority groups, and I found myself representing the Vietnamese minority on my own. I was amongst Silks from London who had authored legal texts on international criminal procedure. And I found myself amongst French, German, and American lawyers with more than 30 years experience in their home jurisdictions. Having only been admitted as a lawyer a few years earlier, I felt out of my depth in representing such a class action in this extraordinary international case. Was I up to it? What if I let my clients down? What I did discover in the process, though, was that it was not a Silk, a QC, or anyone with 30 years experience that my clients needed. These victims lived in the floating villages on the Tamli Sap River in Cambodia. They needed someone who they could trust, someone who they could communicate with, someone who was willing to represent them on a pro bono basis, someone who didn't think twice about riding on the back of a motorcycle to the edges of the muddy riverbank and then taking a paddle boat to meet them at their floating houses to take their statements. They needed someone independent from government to act in their best interests in what was a very politically charged case. Mostly, they needed someone who would turn up, and I became their international counsel. I found that it wasn't having the most experience that makes you the best lawyer. It's more about being the right person in the right setting at the right time for the right people. And in a country where almost every judge and lawyer who had during the Khmer Rouge times had been executed because they were part of the intelligentsia, Cambodia's legal infrastructure was, at the time that I was there, just developing, having had to start from scratch in the aftermath of the atrocities. So I found myself, young as I was, training the national lawyers on international criminal law concepts, such as proof of a joint criminal enterprise in genocide prosecutions. My confidence as I was able to see the work take impact increased. Adversity and opportunity are two sides of the same coin. Life can very easily take you in one direction and then direct you in another way. And in a sense, I was thrown into the work at the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia, but in another sense, I was thrown into it because I chose it. And all of that can only come about through taking opportunities, through knowing your own potential, taking risks, and importantly, turning up. So the next part of my presentation is going to focus on the second theme, which is words of advice to your younger self and words of advice to our audience here tonight. The first thing I have to say is one step at a time. And this is a bit of a mantra in Alcoholics Anonymous, but it is true in all of life as well. We all are ambitious, we're all intelligent, and as part of Generation X and Y, we are known to want to have everything all at once. So doing one thing at a time and doing it well is better than doing a multitude of things at once and doing them poorly. You need to accept that your own passion, tenacity, and drive will get you where you need to be, and that timing will fall into place. But you also need to be strategic about what you want to achieve and the order in which you want to do that. And you can do this by synergizing things, such as when I was studying my master's in international law, I was able to do a mini thesis, which was based on the legal questions that I had to answer in the Khmer Rouge Tribunal. And so that was able to synergize my time and energies into doing an academic paper, which was actually about the legal assessment that I had to undertake in any case, in that real life case. My second word of wisdom, if I can put it that way, is know yourself, explore yourself, and always be yourself. I'm sorry, I've just got a visitor. David, you can sit down and listen to my speech. I'm sorry, I'm getting back to it. No one knows yourself better than you do, so don't second guess yourself. Know your likes, know your dislikes, your tendencies, how you make decisions, and what moves you, and follow your gut instinct. Knowing yourself allows you to be still when there is chaos around you, to be in the eye of the storm, in the calm, and ready for the cyclone to hit you from the other side. And that internal stillness that comes from knowing yourself at core will also help you deal with adverse situations such as racism and discrimination and bullying and harassment in the workplace. My third thing that I want to say is knowing yourself means knowing that you are continuing to change. So continue to reflect and self-improve. Reflect upon your own work and life experiences. Reflect on the things that you've done well and don't disregard your achievements. But do continue to reflect on the decisions you make, what motivates those decisions, whether you make those decisions with integrity and how you could have done things differently. It's all just part of self-improvement and self-realization. I think I've spoken a little bit in the beginning part of my presentation that often your perceived weaknesses are actually your strengths. And I've mentioned about my ethnicity and shame at the beginning of my childhood in terms of where my family came from, you know, the racism that we experienced and how that made me feel. But, you know, there's no doubt of it now. I'm proud of being who I am. And that is part and parcel with recognizing that what other people consider to be your weaknesses are actually your strengths. Many of us will be are in the position of speaking multiple languages and of coming from diverse perspectives. And that's absolutely valuable. Fifthly, don't compare yourself with others, because when you do so, you may lower your own standards. You may not even be aware of it, but sometimes that is what occurs. Also, each one of us comes into life with our own context, experiences, and choices. And comparing yourself with others is not always useful because you don't know the context, experience, and choices that others have had to make. Most of all, though, measure your own self against your own standards. And that also takes a measure of knowing yourself and having faith in yourself to do so. Another thing that has popped up in my life and my career choices is the concept of taking a leap of faith. If you're a perfectionist, like many of us probably can relate to, you'll never feel like you are quite ready to do anything that you really want to do because of the very high standards that you have of yourself internally. So sometimes you just cannot keep on waiting to feel ready to do something. You just need to take a leap of faith. When I came to the private bar, you know, it was very different from being a part of the public service where there was structure and order and a constant income, paid leave. superannuation, I was suddenly starting my own business, having to do all my own accounts, only having superannuation if I remembered to put in superannuation, and only having a holiday if I was able to say no to work. So coming to the private bar was a leap of faith, and sometimes it really takes some encouragement from mentors and people who you can trust to give you that little push to get you to do something that you always had potential to do, but never really felt quite ready to do. The next point is don't be afraid to talk to others and get advice and mentorship, because you know, people have been through what you've been through. They've had to go through sometimes the same problems, and you can learn from their experiences. And it also helps to talk to someone and get that support as well. Nearly getting to the end. Take the time to enjoy what you're doing and take care of yourself. There were so many times in my work life that I can reflect on and think I wasn't enjoying what I was doing because I was so consumed with getting an outcome. There were so many times that I can think of where if only I just was able to relax and really take in what was happening around me and reflect on what I was doing and enjoy it more, I would have had a much more pleasant time doing the work. But you know, the work that you want to do, the work that you're passionate in, you're obviously doing it because it's a part of you that you want to grow and develop. So it's really important to enjoy what you're doing at the same time and not just have it all, you know, like ambition or climbing up the ladder without being able to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. Tying in with that is having a good work-life balance, and physical fitness is critical to maintain your sanity and the impact that you make. I think we all need to remember that you exist inside your body. If your body suffers, your mind suffers. And if your mind suffers, then that has flow-on effect to your work and your impact. So, and this is for me actually a lot more difficult to do than to say. But you know, I recognise that you have to keep physically fit, eat healthily, keep your mind fit, and you need to sometimes do things other than work, things that activities that allow you to engage in a sense of flow, where you can just forget about all the decisions that you have to make and all the work-related frameworks that you often engage in for every other part of your life. And finally, my last message is support one another. Healthy competition is good competition, but understand at the same time that rising to the top is not a zero-sum game. The more we uplift each other, the more we uplift ourselves, and the more we raise our own standards. So those are my very, very quick hints and tips, which derive from my experiences in my professional and personal life leading to this